Good evening, everyone, and welcome to SocialFlight Live. I'm Jeff Simon. We have a very inspirational show for you this evening. Lynette Halter is here, and she is getting her pilot's license while building a Rutan VariEze at only 79 years young. She's a true inspiration. Cannot wait for you to meet her. Before we get started, we have a bunch of stuff to get through. I'm very, very excited and just want to pass some of this along. First of all, things are booming inside SocialFlight. Please go check it out, socialflight.com, and the free SocialFlight mobile apps for Apple and Android devices. We have tens of thousands of aviation events and destinations, new courses coming that will teach you things in our FAA Learning Center, where you can get wings credits for courses by watching those online. You can get, if you happen to be a mechanic, you can get aviation maintenance technician rewards programs credits in there. And if you're an A&P with an IA, you can do your 8 hours of recurrent training through SocialFlight completely free, including getting your legal certificates used for your FAA renewal. So tons and tons of stuff going on having to do with that. And now I also want to share something else, which is a ton of fun when I look at that. We have a new show also coming, as if we didn't have enough going on here. It begins next Thursday, August 15th at 8 p.m. Eastern. We have no SocialFlight live show on Tuesday next week, but we do have this show. It is called Cockpit to Cowl. Cockpit to Cowl is a program that explores general aviation safety topics from the combined perspective of flight instructors, pilots, and mechanics, exploring both man and machine to make aviation safer and more enjoyable. Brian Schiff and I are the hosts of the show, and we're going to take, I believe, an educational and often humorous approach to exploring so many topics that I think are important to everyone, including emergencies, aircraft pre-flights, you name it. We're going to cover all sorts of cool things like this, chatting back and forth about what's the mechanic perspective from my perspective, what's the pilot perspective, and the flight instructor perspective from Brian's. It's a ton of fun. We've already done some dry runs and just we're rolling over doing it. So again, all you have to do to register for that show is go to cockpit2cowl.com. You'll be registered for the whole series. Please go check that out, and I really think you'll enjoy it. Now, another thing is we just finished one period of SocialFlight's Fly to Win Challenge. We gave away an Aspen E5 electronic flight instrument glass for your panel, and that winner was Pat Doyle from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Pat flies a T-34 Mentor, really, really wonderful. I was so excited to reach out and give him the news that he won. He was very excited, and so we have so many things to give away here, and we are in a new prize period, giving away a Lightspeed Delta Zulu headset, and that'll be given away on October 1st. So again, just get in there to win. It's all so simple and so free. So be sure to check all of that out. All you have to do is get the free SocialFlight mobile app, check in at your local airport. You get points for doing that. You can compete to get on our leaderboard and get extra entries to win. I just want to do everything I can to support general aviation by providing you with a mission, places to fly, prizes for flying, you name it. That's the reason that we do all of this. I'd like to take another moment here, if you'll please bear with me also, and do a dedication and to a very, very good friend of mine, John Williams, the owner of Titan Aircraft. Unfortunately and tragically passed away in an aircraft accident on the Sunday just before the AirVenture show in Oshkosh opened, so a couple weeks ago. And it really is a tragic loss for the community. He was a very, very good friend of mine and a wonderful, wonderful individual who very frankly transformed my life, taught me so much about what it was like to build an aircraft, what was involved in so many things, transformed the lives of both Jake and Ben, my boys, and so many other people who were involved in this amazing aircraft. And so I would just like to dedicate this show to John Williams, and to Titan Aircraft and everything that he's done. I will say, to create a new aircraft that people can fly, to tie into their dreams of wanting to have their own version of a P-51 is something very, very special. And very few people have the ability of doing this and the drive to help our community. And so with that, I would just like to recognize him and say thank you to everything that he has done, and really to wish him tailwinds and blue skies. He will be terribly, terribly missed, but we are grateful for everything that he has done. So thank you for indulging me for that. Tonight's broadcast is brought to us by McFarland Aviation. That does also put a very big smile on my face. McFarland is a wonderful family-run company, PMA manufacturer of high-quality parts, cables, controls. They've done so many parts for both our Bonanza, for this aircraft, that Titan Mustang being built right behind me there. And I would encourage you, if you need anything for your aircraft, especially if it's control cables or structural components, check out McFarland. If you want your money to go to a good place, please go check that out. And they are also a retailer that's just about everything you can imagine, from MT props, batteries, hardware, you name it. And they are McFarlandAviation.com. Again, thank you all so much for indulging me in all of that as our introduction. And now I would like to introduce tonight's guest. I met Lynette Halter at this past Sun and Fun as I was walking the show grounds and marveling at the planes, and more importantly, the people who make up our general aviation community. She was wearing a bright red shirt, a veteran ribbon, and a big smile. And so, being who I am, I walked right up and introduced myself, and quickly learned that she was in the midst of learning how to fly and building a Rutan VariEze. And so I simply had to share her story with all of you here on SocialFlight Live. Lynette is a United States Navy veteran of 27 years and someone who quite literally embodies the can-do attitude to make her dreams come true, regardless of the obstacles in front of her. Her story is one of turning challenge into success and finding light through darkness, of someone who once thought of giving up driving even, but who is now taking to the skies. I am thrilled to have her with us here tonight. Please welcome to SocialFlight Live, Lynette Halter. Hello there. How are you doing this evening?
I am doing very well indeed.
Well, Lynette, thank you so much for taking time to join us here on the show. Again, I saw you walking the grounds there at Sun and Fun and had to walk up and introduce myself and start to get your story. And as soon as you started telling me your story, I was like, oh, this is exactly what I want to share with people. So tell me a little bit, or tell everyone, please, a little bit about kind of your background, and before you even got to flying, what kind of brought this kind of tackle the things that come down in front of you attitude?
I was raised by my grandparents, and my grandfather was somebody like, he was somebody that everybody liked. A small man that, like Will Rogers, even looked like him. But nothing stopped him. He was thrown from a horse in a snowstorm and broke his collarbone. Had to walk 10 miles in that snowstorm. What's the alternative? Well, when you have an example like this in front of you, you've got to keep going. I've had more than a few challenges myself, and I met other people that when I had a back injury, I met James Miller. He didn't tell me he was a Medal of Honor recipient. But his story was inspirational because at the end of World War II, his backbone was pretty much gone. And the doctors said, we can't do anything but give you pain medicines. You're done. He wasn't. He went ahead and got his civil engineering degree and helped design a few communities. And he figured out how to sleep with pillows, and I don't know how he did it. But having met him, he just took away the excuses. He was a veteran who kept a hero who kept inspiring. And I didn't even know about his Medal of Honor until I went to the Historical Museum here in Florida and saw his name on the wall.
Wow.
And things like this just keep me inspired. Everybody gets down, but then you look for something that helps you get back on your feet, because what are you going to do? Just lay there? No way. That's even worse.
How did you meet him?
I was selling Craftmatic beds, going to people's homes and demonstrating the beds with pillows. I was completely unsuccessful at it.
And then you just got to talking with him and found out who he was?
I later on found out who he was. He told me his story about not anything that he did that was heroic. And when I read his story at the Florida History Museum, it's Marvel Comics. Movies couldn't have done anything more than what this man did. And here he was 115 pounds soaking wet. They had to tape his ribs up every day for him to put them back on. And he went from the tip of the boot of Italy to the very top. That kind of thing can't keep from inspiring you.
Yeah.
It takes away excuses.
It certainly does. I have amazing, just awe of the Medal of Honor winners. Of course, we've had someone, for anyone watching, that we've talked about the museum. Chris Cassidy was on the show. Others have been on the show, really focused on the Medal of Honor Museum. So many things to try to highlight those stories, but it is really, really remarkable.
Yes, and he did this for his comrades, and he never talked about himself. It was he considered them the ones. Most Medal of Honor recipients consider the people who died more important than them getting the medal. And doesn't matter, he was still a hero. He was the only person's story that I did not have his permission to put it in a book I'm writing.
Interesting.
It was
Tell
from
me
my viewpoint.
Tell me about the book.
Pardon?
Tell me about the book.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how to get the money to my engine for my VariEze. It's a Continental 200 is what I want. And I don't have anything close to what it would cost. So I decided to write a book about people who have overcome fear. He certainly did. I have. And I've interviewed people of different vocations. I want each person to be very different. I don't want them to all be pilots. My most inspiring story is about a woman who ended up finding herself divorced with 2 children, 2 babies to support, and never working. And now she's survived. But each person has something they've overcome, and they've arrived at a place that is inspiring. And I started writing these stories for the money. And I had no particular experience in writing. But each story that I write, I get the person's permission to put it in the book. And it has gotten so that interviewing people and writing their stories inspire me more than anything else. And I'm looking for more people that can write the stories. Some people overcame their fear because of examples that they had. I know a pilot who went into manufacturing, and I've yet to sit him down and get him to talk to me for 15 minutes and write his story. But he was brave because his parents wouldn't let him be afraid. He was scared of elevators, and they went to the Carlsbad Cavern and got down there, and they could have walked back up with this poor child who was so afraid of elevators. They made him go up in the elevator. And I suspect that made a difference on the rest of his life.
Interesting.
And I figure this book I've been told that this is not a good title, but I like it. It's I'll be damned if I live in fear.
I kind of like that. I'll be damned if I live in fear. That seems like a pretty good approach to a name for a book. I think that'll work. Let's go back, and I'd love to talk about how you discovered. Discovered may not be the right word, but
Yes, it is.
actually dove into aviation. I mean, my understanding is that your introduction to the general aviation world for yourself did not really happen until you were 71. Can you tell us about that?
I went to visit my son who lives north of Washington, D.C., and he took me to that museum close to the Dulles Airport, the Vilmer Haven.
Yeah.
And I walked in there and, gee, I forgot my cell phone. And then I looked around and I kind of go off on my own. And I didn't see my husband or my son. So I thought, oh, well, I guess I'll just keep going. This place will close or they'll find me. And so I joined somebody talking about military planes. And I added a little bit to that one. I have a little bit of knowledge with the years in the Navy. It was in the Navy Reserves. I'm not going to claim Navy. I'm going to claim Navy Reserves. I did it the easy way, not like the other veterans have done it. And I kept on going, and I got to gliders, and I thought, I've always wanted to fly in a glider. And then I got a little further, and I got to ultralights, and I thought, oh, I could do that. But neither one of these things lit my fire. And I kept going around, and I stopped in front of Bert Rutan's VariEze. And I was dumbstruck. And I read a little bit. I read it. Well, I read the whole thing, actually. And then I left. And I came back and I read it again.
Had you ever seen a Canard aircraft before that?
I had seen it in the air, and I had loved what I'd seen. I don't remember where, but for a magazine, I thought, that is really nice. I love science fiction. It just fit in. It clicked so many boxes for me. The first box was I didn't see myself flying, even though I love to fly. When I get on a commercial airplane, it's called "Don't Get Between Me and the Window Seat." I'm going to get in the window seat one way or the other.
I like
and
that.
I want the window open. But I mean, even when I flew MAC flight up to Seattle, I loved flying, and I remember flying up to Seattle, and it was from San Diego to Seattle. And when we got to SeaTac, the airport was socked in. Now, this is a military plane, and it's got a lot of military people on it. So they go on over to Whidbey Island. And I started talking to the man across the seat from me, and he was a major in the Air Force, and he was a liaison to the embassy in Russia. And we came back, and that pilot insisted on landing that plane. I stuck my nose in a book because I didn't want to be nervous. And I looked up to be able to finally see the ground when we were below the treetops.
Wow. Yep.
And he landed it absolutely perfectly. So I've always loved aviation. My father's thing that he did when he was in town would drive to the airport and just look at airplanes on Sunday. I didn't discover until later that during World War II, he probably flew something in one of the Navy flying clubs, and my mother did too.
Oh, wow.
But they gave it up for family.
Mm.
And these things happen.
Yep.
But these also happen because of family, because it was my son who took me to that museum. And after going back and looking at this third time, Rutan's VariEze, and I've got the picture of it. I pasted the picture on the back of my phone. I started saying I could do this. And I went back to my son's place that night and discussed it with him. And he said, you've always wanted to. You've always wanted to fly, Mama. And I looked at the worst case scenario. There was one bad crash, which was everything the pilot did wrong. I looked at that, and I wouldn't have done any of those things. I do analyze things pretty thoroughly before I do them. And I decided, yes, I wanted to fly, and I wanted to fly in the Canard. It did not have to be a VariEze.
Mm-hmm.
And I read every book I could get my hands on. When there was a family get-together in Seattle, I went to Seattle. And I found a pilot in Seattle. He knows who he is, and I'm having a brain trying to remember it right now. And he gave me a flight in his longies. And that picture of me in the longies, and he just took his camera and held it over his shoulder.
Oh, wait a minute. I have that one.
That one. Yes. I don't consider it the most beautiful picture in the world, and I don't care. I am so happy.
So that was your first flight in a LongEZ in a Rutan design.
Yep. And that is on my computer whenever I boot up, so I can remind myself of my dream.
That's why you're doing it. Yep. How cool is that? I love that.
And that's something that I think everybody should do. And of course, on my phone, I found another stock picture that I could put on the screen. I just have to arrange the icons so they're not on it.
And then tell me, this is another picture of you with a LongEZ.
I did a lot of research. That is Dave Adams, who gives a lot of rides in his LongEZ. He is very experienced. He flies, he races, and he does formation flying.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the day that he took me up in Rough River, and that was, that was one of the most fun days I've had. It was a total blast.
That's incredible. So you went from kind of going through the museum, and that part triggered everything for you to researching. Was it the museum that introduced you to the idea that you could build, or how did that come about? Because I think a lot of people outside of our general aviation community have maybe like a story they've heard of someone that maybe built something, but they don't really understand it. They don't really know that there's a builder community and anyone can do it, or how do you go about any of this? How did you, was it just reading stuff? How did you come up to speed that formulating in your head that this is what I want to do?
I didn't yet. I knew I could buy one of these if somebody had built. They are ridiculously undervalued, totally undervalued, and yet they're such strong airplanes. People have landed them, the engine has died, and they've landed in water and hauled it out, fixed it, and flown home the next day.
Wow.
Other people have landed it in water and hit tree stumps and damaged their wings and sat there dry until somebody came and hauled them out.
Yeah, I mean, they were designed for safety, that's for sure. Bert really did something impressive on all of that.
Well, I didn't expect the safety factor. What I saw was I could fly farther for less.
Mm-hmm.
They have such wonderful range and mile per gallon. They're much cheaper to fly than Priuses are to drive. And they'll certainly take you further. A LongEze, if you didn't stop for nature calls, would carry enough gas to get you from Orlando to DC.
Wow.
That's not so wise to do that. You really should stop and make sure, of course. So I'm not recommending that, but those kind of things and the looks of it just firmly put me into the Canard camp. And because these are so undervalued, I mean, these, you can get something, you can get one of these, it'll go 200 miles an hour for what you can buy a Cessna 154.
Mm.
Or maybe a 152. And so I knew I could afford to buy one. But learning to fly, now I researched and read everything I could for years before I started the flying part. I did, first flying I did, because I read all of the books about Bert and Dick Rutan. I flew gliders, and that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a part of the process, because they say before you fly one of these planes, because they are fast and slick. And I figured the faster you're going, the more trouble you can get yourself into. So I wanted to follow everything he told me to do, and that to become a good pilot. So that's why I flew gliders. And then I finally found an instructor, and I would drive an hour over from Tallahassee to Perry. I wasn't aware at the time that I was not learning quite as fast as I wanted to, because he was tall and I'm short.
Yep, I know where this is going.
It wasn't until I found a woman instructor that she told me to sit on pillows. And that made the biggest difference.
You're
He's a
not
good
the first
instructor.
person that you're not the first person that's ever told me that. There was there've been some other folks on the show who are interestingly enough, some of them, you know, famous fighter pilots now, who have told stories of, I just couldn't land it in primary training, and then all of a sudden someone showed up and gave me a pillow, and I greased every landing after that. It's true. It's true. A little understanding from a good instructor goes a long way.
Well, I think he was a pretty good instructor, but he didn't catch that. And I'm probably going to go back and find him again, but I had to drop out because I developed vertigo.
Mm.
Thought I was totally washed up. Matter of fact, until fairly recently, I thought I should not tell anybody that I had vertigo, that my physical might be pulled.
Mm.
But it was corrected by a doctor and his physical therapist, who also had her doctorate. And so it's not going to be coming back, and I even know how to fix it if I even felt a little bit of it.
Fascinating. Tell me a little bit more about like how you experienced that and what advice you have for anyone that experiences something like vertigo, because I think there's probably quite a few people that worry about something like that, even if they're not pilots and thinking about becoming pilots, or even if a pilot has experienced vertigo or spatial disorientation connected that might be like that. Tell me a little bit more about your experience with that.
Well, I had it 4 times, and this was the 4th time. When you have vertigo, your head feels like you're swimming, whether you're laying down or whatever. So you're always having your stomach's feeling upset. It's about as miserable as you can get. In other words, you're dizzy even lying down.
Hmm.
And somebody discovered how to fix this, and he was a physical therapist. Some physical therapists know how to do this, and some are better than others. Well, this old doctor, and he was even older than I am, had been doing it for years. And he did it right. And most doctors still do not know how to do this. There is something called the Epley maneuver. EPLEY, that you can do yourself if you felt a starting of it, and it was because of the inner ear. There's other reasons why you can get vertigo that, I mean, shoot, you could be dehydrated.
Mm.
Or there could be something else wrong with you besides inner ear. So this wouldn't necessarily work for everybody, but there is no reason to hide it from your flight surgeon when you've got it fixed.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and got a regular physical. After I got it fixed, well, I only went because of the flying community. This was 2019. 2018, no. It was, yeah, and I thought at this point I was SOL.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband kept asking me if I wanted to go to Oshkosh. And I wanted to go, but I didn't want to spend the money. I am terminally frugal. Being raised by my grandparents who lived through the Dust Bowl and the Depression, it comes with the territory.
Yeah.
He likes a wife that doesn't blow money. But he got me up to Oshkosh. I drove up there, and he got me a B&B. And one of the other people in the community was somebody who worked for NASA, another woman. And so I partnered with her going to Oshkosh, which was wonderful. And I, just as fast as I could, I went out to the Canard flight line. And I don't know who's I talked to who was a Canard builder and pilot. And I said, yeah, I'd love to, but I've had this vertigo. And he says, but you can probably pass the physical. Go ahead and do it. Go talk to a flight surgeon. You can pass the physical. And I went, oh. And then I went to talk to a flight surgeon there at Oshkosh, and he said, go get your physical. And I came back, and I went to Lake City and found the flight surgeon out at the airport and had no problem passing it. And
Excellent.
he was an Air Force pilot whose most fun he had was refueling over the Atlantic. And it was not a whiffle-diff kind of thing. This was a solid flight physical. He could determine there really wasn't anything wrong with me other than weak bones, and but nothing that would interfere with my flying ability.
That's great. Wonderful. So
that was the first obstacle overcome. But then I had to go find an instructor, and I couldn't find an instructor. I mean, I drove 100 miles around Tallahassee trying to find one. Well, meanwhile, to do something, I started a flying club.
You started it yourself?
It was my idea, but
with a group,
no
yeah, a new flying club, though, yeah.
And the people were all from my EAA chapter 445, and one of the people had an old Coupe, the C model in Texas. It was in parts.
Near Coupe 415C, yeah.
And they drove to Texas in 3 vehicles and hauled it back. And we rebuilt it in an open hangar. Now, there is an A&P, well, actually he's more than an A&P, who would come along and go, no, that's okay, and sign off on it. And rebuilding that engine, it was like, oh, that's not such a mystery. Now, I didn't do the most work because there were 5 of us doing it. And I still couldn't find a flight instructor.
Wow.
So I went to the local flight school and here in Tallahassee, and they took most of my money.
I'll bet.
I used the Redbird a lot, but I still didn't solo.
Mm-hmm.
Had some good instructors. I'm afraid that I probably enjoyed being in the air so much I didn't buckle down and think ahead of the airplane. Because I'm not going to yell at the instructors, even though I do yell about the money being gone. Ouch. But one of the people in this Tally Flies, as a joke, found this VariEze on Marketplace at a ridiculous price. The glassing was already done. I had studied these and I'd studied these, and I had looked at another one to buy and just didn't quite make myself do it. It came with the engine, and it would have been worth it just for the engine. I was told that, but I didn't. But this one, I couldn't resist. And so a friend got in his truck, and I borrowed another Finn's trailer, and off we went over to the coast. And it had to sit in the man that I bought it from in his place for 8 months because I could not find a hangar. Once again, I did my trip an hour away all around trying to find one. And a friend told me of somebody else in Bainbridge, which is an hour and a quarter away from where I live, that he had an open air hangar attached to his regular hangar that I could go build it. And I did, and I learned an awful lot about what not to do. But in this build, it's like I feel like I'm getting a master's in something or other.
I think that's what a lot of aircraft builders find, is that during the time that you're building is as much of an education as it is an experience, as it is an idea of getting yourself an airplane. At the end of the day, you're right. It's like getting a master's. I love that.
But it also makes you feel good that you're using your brain.
That is true. That is
it's like brain expansion headaches, though.
I want to interject something on what you said earlier here, and I don't do this often, but I think it's pretty important, and that is I'll let her remain anonymous, but we had someone type in that just wanted to thank you about your story about Vertigo, because she experienced that for 8 years and found the Epley maneuver solved it for her, and that you have now inspired her to go get her medical based on what you have just said.
Wonderful.
Isn't that something?
Oh, yes.
So these stories of being able to overcome things, being able to do that, have direct impact, and it's so wonderful to see it happen right during the show.
Yeah, people never really tell you the good things you've done because they're so busy.
Yes.
So I hauled this back and I started working on it, and I'd stay up at this in an RV up there and work on it. Shall I go back to the telling about the flying before I jump onto the, oh, well, I'll just build them all together. I was putting everything together through the firewall, and this was not so terribly easy because first I had to take the firewall apart and put my fire retarder behind there. And I did not buy the fire retardant from Aircraft Spruce because I told you I was cheap. But I bought a very good fire retardant. Unfortunately, it was very thick. And this made me work harder, and trying to put it back together took me forever just to get bolts in. And some of them I didn't get bolts back in the right places until a hangar opened up here in Tallahassee. And well, in Quincy, which is a very unusual little airport. It's both grass and asphalt. And I had a friend come help me, somebody I'd never met before. he wanted to keep his hand in aviation, and he was retired, and his help was invaluable because he showed me how to use a pry bar. Something as simple as that I didn't know how to do. And that's why just your next door mechanic might be valuable.
Exactly.
Um,
You must have discovered a ton about community through all this. Tell me a little bit about what your experience has been with the Canard community.
When I get stuck, I go online and I ask for some advice. And some of it I take, and some of it I know they not quite so much know what they're talking about. Controversy. Because after all, some people love long easies more than very easies.
So,
everybody has their.
so you've got the general world who you know of general aviation that knows about planes. You've got a small world that knows about experimental. You've got a different small niche that knows about Rutan Canard designs, and then within that, you've got your own bias going on about which ones.
Yes, but they all help each other, and they invent things in that group. They've invented replacement gears. They've improved things for the nose wheel, latches, and they share that information. They find better ways to make brakes or install brakes. And it is a very large Canard Owners and Builders Association. For 30 years, there was a magazine that came out that was very functional. Lots of great articles that I went back and tried to read every one that would apply to it, and took them apart and pasted them together in my notes so I can find anything I'm looking for and organize those the way I want them so I could maybe find something.
Mm-hmm.
Can't always find what you're looking for, but you keep looking. And I would go back and ask them. Being short, I got a great answer for what to do for short people. There's one pilot, you know who you are, you're in California, whose son is tall and he's short, and they both fly the airplane. So he has this wonderful steel rods that he sets over his rudder for him, and then takes it off when his son is flying. And this is something that I will have the first friend that I was referring to, who's also a welder, build for me one day. In the not very distant future, hopefully.
That's wonderful. Now, you also had the opportunity to, oh, go ahead.
I have also called up people and asked their advice. People who've worked with Burt Rutan and flew with him and been shocked at them taking the time to talk to me, because I can't say that I'm such a novice that I've got a great swath of ignorance going here, that I just learn as I go. But yet they are encouraging, and they, as long as I have researched it first, made sure I didn't find it, well, tried to find it someplace, they'll take the time. I try to not ask the same person over and over and over, so I wear them out. That's why people I've asked about 3 times for something, I go find somebody else. I'm afraid I'll wear them out.
Yeah, you got to spread it out.
Oh, absolutely.
That's another good tip for people, is how to spread out your requests for information.
And on these on the blog that we look at together, I can both go back and research on that, and I can listen in on everybody's discussion on all these improvements or things they're looking for, and have this little file over here that's my builder information that I'm going to need that piece of information for.
Got it.
And
So,
this is what makes the difference, as well as going to the shows and talking to them.
yep. So you're at the stage now where you are kind of keeping your eyes open and looking for an engine. About that, the Continental 0200, is that correct?
Absolutely, that's what I need.
So we want to throw
There's a
that
lot
one
of
out
others
to
that
the
are
audience. If anyone knows of, good deals on 0200s or any other types of things out there, you be sure you can always send a message to info@socialflight.com. We'll pass it on to Lynette, but you never know what's out there, and sometimes it's in surprising ways. And I'll throw this out to you as well. My good friend who is no longer with us, Treat Williams, was looking for a C90 Continental engine for his Cub. And as much as I was helping him in that search, and as much as we kept looking, we kept finding I didn't realize how many gold-plated C90 engines had been manufactured by Continental, but it turns out that there's a lot of them. And they were very difficult to find ones that were not outrageously expensive until all of a sudden we stumbled across an air coupe, as you mentioned, similar thing, air coupe 415, that had a C90 in it and was unfathomably inexpensive. And so he purchased that with the intention of flying it for a while and then seeing what to do about the engine later on. Hate to see an airframe kind of not, leave the registry, but it was half the price of all the engines we looked at. So there are lots and lots of different ideas on how you can achieve that. But if anyone has ideas on an 0200 out there, feel free to send a message to info@socialflight.com. Now, I have some pictures that I would love to know the story behind of you with Mr. Rutan. Tell me a little bit about that.
That was when I went to AirVenture in 2019, and both Dick and Bert were there. But Dick was talking about his book, and I'm quite sure they didn't know what to think about this old groupie. I was so delighted that I found anything this man said funny. And you can tell by his expression that he's going, yeah, well, it's another blonde.
I don't know if that's what he's thinking, but
I don't know either.
yeah, these Bert takes things pretty seriously. He's been here on the show, and he is he is just the mind is always going. He's probably thinking of a new aircraft design at that moment.
Well, no, this is Dick Rutan right here. And I ended up being listening to, because Dick was referring to his book. Most of the pictures were with him. He was speaking as an author.
Yes.
But
yes.
I listened to
he's recently passed away. To anyone interested in that book, it's The Next 5 Minutes by Dick Rutan. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. If you really want to know his story, that is a book to read. That is for sure the book to read. The Next 5 Minutes. Well, Lynette, we have reached the time in our show where we like to do something we call Social Flight's Fast Five questions to kind of get to know you and have you kind of thought-provoking questions to see how you respond. Are you up for that?
I am.
Excellent. Lynette Halter, welcome to Social Flight's Fast Five questions to get to know you. And let us start with question number one. And we'll see if we already know the answer to this one, but you've had an opportunity through flight training to fly a bunch of different types of planes as part of it. Out of those, the chances that you've had a chance to either move the yoke of the stick or fly the plane, what is your favorite?
I think it might have been that little Piper that I flew just once.
Really?
Cherokee.
What Piper? The Cherokee. A classic pilot maker. That is interesting. I love that. Okay.
I have no idea.
You don't have to. It's visceral. It's how it made you
Yes.
feel. Okay. Question number 2 was, and this is a great opportunity to feed into your book that you described about overcoming fear. Can you think of a particular moment that an experience that you went through that that you experienced, like either a scary flying moment or something else, that experience sort of changed your perspective on things?
Yes, when I was 4 years old and I was thrown from a pony at a carnival.
Really?
And then my father picked me up and put me back on the pony and said, now, if you get back on this pony, you're a cowgirl. But I didn't have any choice. He put me on it. And then he led me around. And I was a cowgirl after that. He really regretted that one.
I love the way you put that. If you get back on this pony, you're a cowgirl. That's awesome. Okay. Question number 3. If you had the opportunity to go back in time to some moment in your life, not to change it, but to just re-experience it, spend 15 minutes or so back in some moment from your past, what moment would that be?
Oh, my goodness. Back in college, I learned the lesson of you regret what you don't do instead of the mistakes you make. And I would go back and not be so shy and meet somebody that I was too shy to talk to, just to get over that.
Just to get over that. Love that. Okay. Question number 4. If you could go back and kind of give advice to your younger self from your teens or 20s, what would you say?
Now read Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Don't wait until you're in college. Go have fun.
Excellent. Excellent. And question number 5, if you had the opportunity to have dinner or drink or spend some time with anyone at all from history, past, present, alive, no longer with us, anyone, who would that be?
I think maybe General Eisenhower, talking aviation, flying with him.
That would be really, really cool. And I do not think anyone has said General Eisenhower so far, and I love that. That is a wonderful answer. Excellent. Well, Lynette, thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to join us here on Social Flight Live. I appreciate your story. It was wonderful meeting you down at Sun and Fun, and I really do appreciate the inspiration that you can provide to people of all ages, that it's not about your bank account, it's not about your age, it's not about your medical condition, it's not about anything. You can find a way to make your dreams come true. There's some way out there to make that happen, and I appreciate your perseverance and setting that example for others in our general aviation community.
Well, to not do it is to not have fun and not have my dream.
That's right.
So that's
what is the opportunity? The alternative doesn't exist.
the alternative is just to give up and sit in a chair and generate.
Exactly. Well, you're a shining example of doing quite the opposite. So thank you very much for coming on the show, and have a wonderful evening.
I shall. It was fun.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
And thank you to all of you for taking time out of your evening to join us here on Social Flight Live. Again, we're off from Social Flight Live next Tuesday, but on Thursday of next week, August 15th at 8 p.m., we have the debut show of Cockpit to Cowl with my very good friend, Brian Schiff, and I, and we are going to have so much fun exploring general aviation topics from the perspective of both man and machine and mechanic and pilot. And I'll tell you, all I can say is if you have 1/10 of the amount of fun watching that show that we do anytime we get together to talk about these types of things, then you are going to have a fun Thursday evening. All you have to do is go to cockpit2cowl with a number 2. I'll put it on the screen again, cockpit2cowl.com. And you can register for that show, and it's just going to be a ton of fun. So again, thank you all for taking time out of your evening to join us here on Social Flight Live. After that, also just to let you know, on Tuesday, August 20th at 8 p.m., we have a very special show. P-51 fighter pilot from World War II, Bill Lyons, will be joining us here on the show. I've spent time with Bill. He is 100 years young. He is as snappy as you can imagine and is an amazing inspiration. We'll tell you what it's like to fly the Mustang, what it was like to fly it in battle in World War II, and pass along some of the things that he has learned in that amazing century of life. So please join us for that show on August 20th as well. Until next time, I wish you all blue skies.